I was taking drugs every single weekend to try and escape the noise, and probably you could put it down to enjoy being somebody else. And it was because I was always struggling with the person I was once I'd left the army. Since leaving the army, I was a broken person. I was masking myself with my drive and my focus by doing new things, by buying new things, and starting new, missions, tasks in life to make me feel good, to overcome that feeling of, I guess, numb. And one of the things I was doing, which is the main reason I want to talk to you guys today, is I was taking cocaine every single weekend, 3 grams to be precise, £100 a week, £400 a month. And then I'd probably have some days where I'd start early and have it on a Thursday, Friday, whatever. And I was doing this because it was my hit and high and way of disguising my pain, if you like. And the reason I talk about these things is because, first of all, I get a lot of people that ask me, about my upbringing in my life, because I don't tend to share much of it. But then at the same time, it's to help people, or hopefully help people that may be going through similar situations themselves, where they're using something to mask their emotions and they're not quite being true to themselves and dealing with the problem. Now, my problem was that when I left the army, I got kicked out in the end. I was being discharged for a broken hip. I then did stupid things and got kicked out because I was angry. And at the time I was being bullied in the army, which I didn't see was bullying at the time. And then I retaliated in an aggressive way and then ended up getting kicked out of the army. And from that, I sort of held a lot of shame. I felt deflated and defeated, and I felt like I'd let myself and everybody else down that thought I was doing serving the country for a good reason and everything else. And because I came out and lied to people of the reason of coming out, I didn't tell them the end part, if you like. I just told them the part that I was getting medically discharged, which was the original truth. But because I went through that process of lying, it then became heavier on my shoulders. It took me lower mentally. It made me weaker as a person, and it also made it harder to get rid of because of the simple fact that I was getting deeper into a hole. That phrase, what people say, you dig yourself into a hole and struggle to get yourself out of it. I was continuing to dig this hole, and literally the ground was moving further and further away. But there's a lot of people that go through these situations in life where they're not facing a fact or facing a truth or fixing something that's even 1% fixable more than they think it is, and they mask it with everything else. One of the things I used to do was buy things all the time because it made me feel good for that short period. And again, that's the whole thing about taking cocaine. It makes you feel good for that period. You might do extreme things again because you get that buzz and you get that rush, and it makes you feel good for that short period. So people do all these things other than actually fighting the facts and the actual issue that could be worked on. But after all this, after years of masking it, hiding it, and not really telling people the truth, I went through therapy. I had multiple therapies, if I'm honest, like different people at the start, and I always had my guard up, and I never really was honest with them, and that just proved that I wasn't in the right place to put my guard down and be honest, I guess. But then I met one specific one, and I will say her name because she is the person that helped me come out of my shell, if you want to put it like that. Ella McChrystal, who I worked with, and it was a lot different to the other therapists I'd worked with. And I found myself coming out of my shell, like I say, and actually owning the truth, and then realizing that actually it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And that's the ironic and funny thing, right? And this is a huge, huge lesson that I learned. So I was holding this tension, this pain, this anger, and all these different emotions in a bottle. When I opened the bottle and told people about the situation, everything just freely went out into the air, and I realized that it wasn't even half as much as a problem and that it was. I actually remember the first person I sat him down, told him about it, and he was like nodding along as if he wasn't really listening, but he was listening. But then at the end of it, it was like, I thought he was going to tell me you were going to die or you were dying. And I was like, okay. And my response was quite weird because it was like his response wasn't what I expected from him. And then it sort of made me feel weird because I was like, fuck, probably not as bad as I thought it was. And then I remember telling another person and got the similar response again. I told another person and got a similar response again. And each time I told somebody, I've not told, it's not something I walk around and tell everybody, but the people I chose to say it to all had a very similar response. And that was, we all fuck up and we all learn. But that is the big learn here, that whenever you get yourself into a situation that you feel like you can't get out of, it is not always the case. It's not always as bad as it feels to you, and there's always ways to improve on that feeling in that situation. So, like the lesson really is to own your shit, make sure you focus on you moving forward instead of dwelling on things that have happened in the past, and actually be open open and honest about these fuck-ups, if you want to call them that, but learns that you go through in life, and maybe help somebody else not go through that same thing, as opposed to dwelling on what you did and seeing it as the worst possible scenario. Obviously, I'm saying this out, for people to listen to, because I don't mind people knowing that about me, and, showing my vulnerability is, I guess, it's a nice feeling, because quite often people, will say that comment of, it's easy for you because, or, obviously one of the things I get a lot is, it's easy for you to be strong and fit because you own a gym. Gym doesn't train itself or train me, and so it doesn't make it easier. It's just that maybe it's closer. Really, that doesn't make it easier at all. But a lot of people sort of think because I hang around, I spend time with, I surround myself with, and I practice a lot of mindset focused training, that it then becomes easier. And again, it doesn't. And that's why I like to show my vulnerability here, because there's a lot of things I've learned over the years that I now enjoy helping other people with, because I know it's things that we all go through. And there's a lot of talk about mental health, about people being honest and open and everything else, and but ultimately it's about, as a minimum, just own your own shit and understand that you are in control of how you are feeling from that situation. You can make something so fucking tough for yourself, or you could learn to let it go. And it's something that I've had to do over the years. I say this so often to people, but it's a little bit like now, if I said to you right now, don't look behind you, dangerous, don't look behind you. If I kept saying that to you, you'd want to look behind you. And if you allow me to control you in that situation, you'll then start to not look behind, because you'll think there's something dangerous. But actually, if you took control of that situation and actually look, you would then realize that, no, it's okay. And that is the point here. We need to own these things and make sure that we aim to manage them fast, as opposed to letting them build up and become something more than they actually are.